Oh yeah, it could be. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, you're
And
recording now.
yeah, I just
Cool.
started, just hit record. um, yeah, that's a good point. Maybe it got to a point where they figured they should take it over to
Yeah.
the paywall, the other side of the paywall, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually good. I'm going to write that down. I should maybe look and see, do some research on whether or not that's the case.
Well, because I'd like to start their 14-day trial just to see what they're doing, but I have a feeling they probably got so popular with people like us just wanting to chat about experiences.
Oh, to the point where it became almost.
They're probably busy.
Yeah.
Like they seem to have recruited quite a few people for different purposes, like therapy, behavior management, and those kinds of realms.
Yeah, the description of the podcast. Oh, I don't have my phone with me. The description of the podcast was that it was so it was a place where people could put tips up there and interview people and then have experts on and talk about like specific aspects of fasting and things.
Yeah.
And that's with Jason Fung and who's the other person? I've never heard of them.
Jason Fung, Megan Ramos. That'd be his. Yeah, his. She would have been doing all the clinical. She would have been all doing the clinical work. She co-authored, I think, the last like 5 out of 6 books or something like that. Yeah.
Cool.
And I think they worked together in the early days too, or they went to school or something.
Yeah, I think you're right.
And then there's the book's called Life in the Fasting Lane. It seems like it's like their big launch of all these online groups that they're doing. So there's 3 of them that have written this book. And Eve Ramos, she's kind of like, I identify myself as her because she talks about her experiences of being overweight and what it was like. And so they've incorporated her into the book and it makes it more real. It's not so clinical. Right. You know, you can actually make a connection where right off the hop, right in the beginning, she talks about her love of food and how she grew up with food. And it was just, I really enjoyed her parts of the book.
Yeah.
So
more relatable.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like your idea. So you can introduce John and I'll sit in the back seat and then we'll get her going.
Well, John, do you want to introduce yourself? What would you like people to know about you? I don't like attaching titles to people, so you've got a blank slate.
All right. Yeah, I'm John Berrie. I my job is primary job is as a personal trainer right now. So I am interested in the diet angle on things. It's not a huge piece of what I do with my clients because I'm not formally educated in diet, other than like I did my degree in kinesiology, like other than a few courses there, but they're pretty basic and really just skim the surface. And now with all of this information out there on podcasts and stuff like that, like that's where I'm finding most of it. So I'll point my clients kind of in that direction. But yeah, I'm a personal trainer. I'm a musician. I'm into art, hiking. Yeah, that's about it. Yeah.
I was thinking yoga, meditation.
Yeah, meditation.
Silent retreats.
Yeah, silent retreats for sure. Actually, that really ties into the whole diet side of things too. So.
I was hoping you would talk about that actually.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
The silent retreats.
I didn't think to mention that, but yeah, it is a big part of my life. It was more so before, like the retreats and stuff like that. But
I guess we should just talk about the silent retreat then, since we're here.
Yeah, perfect. Good segue. So you were hosting them, were you?
No.
Okay.
I was a participant. So it started like, I've always been interested in more Eastern spirituality, or, I say always, probably since I was like in my early teens. I saw my dad was reading this book by the Dalai Lama, and I just found it really interesting. And it sort of, it sparked my interest in more Eastern philosophies. And then then when I was doing my kinesiology undergrad, I was taking a course where a guy came in and gave a guest lecture on this practice called Vipassana, which is like it's like a form of meditation where you develop a focus through like focusing on your breathing, and then apply that focus to the sensations in your body by systematically scanning your body from a kind of detached perspective, just observing what's there. And he gave this talk, and I thought, man, like he kind of laid it out like you do 10 days in silence, like it's 10 hours a day of meditation. You're sitting a lot and you're not talking to anybody the whole time. And I couldn't help think, but like that it was really interesting, but that there was no way in hell that I could do it. and then it took a few years, like probably 5 years after that, I tried it. So I've done now two 10-day silent retreats. And on the first one, I went into it not really realizing how much of a stressed out state I was in and how much inflammation I was carrying in my body. And because of the nature of the practice, and there's like, you're so like in your own kind of, not bubble, like you're just in your own kind of sphere of awareness of, being attentive to your breathing and to the sensations in your body, even like away from the practice. So there was very little like stress. There was very little input. And so those 10 days, like I felt completely de-stressed and had some really interesting experiences and lost like 15 pounds, which in what must have been inflammation. And
Are
then
you
after
eating?
that,
You're eating during that time, or is it fasting as well?
yeah, you're eating. It's like vegetarian, pretty basic vegetarian diet. But with that kind of like the practice of doing that, like for those 10 days, it developed in me this greater attunement to what was going on in my body. And then that's when I started to realize, like, it was a gradual process after that, but I gradually kind of woke up to the fact that gluten, like dairy, my body can't tolerate those things. And so I've had to move away from that and try other, like getting my fun in other ways. And it's still it's an ongoing process. Like I'm like forever a student of this kind of thing. So
The student of life.
absolutely. Yeah.
When you say that you weren't able to have gluten or dairy, dairy's a pretty easy elimination.
Yeah.
So for gluten, how did you end up drilling down to just gluten itself? Like what kind of elimination did you do to figure that out?
Yeah, it was sort of just over time. I would notice when I would eat it, I would feel weird. And by weird, I mean like, have symptoms that I wouldn't have expected. Like, I would like notice a dip in my mood or like a dip in my energy. But the dip in the mood was really the striking thing that I noticed. And it was through Steph, my partner, Chrissy's cousin, that because she had been dealing with it too. I through just the process of eating it and then being attentive to how I was feeling within the next 24 hours, I basically realized like, this is not working for me. And then I just cut it out. But like the cutout process was long because I didn't really realize how much it is in so much so much food contains gluten. And so still even today, like I'll still, eat something and then I'll think afterwards, like, oh crap, like there might've been gluten in that. And then I'll, feel the repercussions the next day usually. Yeah. So
that was like, you'd get it. Because I know that there's some people that they would try to do a gluten elimination, or they would have it figured out that it was gluten. I can't remember who it was. It was either a client or somebody, and they were talking about how they can't eat bread here, but when they go on vacation to France or Spain or Western Europe or something like that, said, yeah, I can have bread over there. So we ended up trying to figure out what it was, and it ended up being just the purity of the ingredients. So over there, you just get your flour and your water and yeast, and then they bake it. And then what they ended up finding out was that here they were having a loaf of bread, and it was, when they actually looked at the ingredients, it was, safflower oil, sunflower oil, all these odd vegetable oils, and like 35 different ingredients in their bread, or maybe not necessarily 35, but 12 or something like that.
Yeah.
That's
interesting. Like I've heard in Europe, they banned GMO. So like, I don't know if that has to do with it. Because I've heard of that too. People eating like bread over there, carbs, pasta, and not having the same reaction. And so from my understanding, it like sometimes these intolerances can root at the gut level through like a permeable gut, or like a leaky gut type syndrome. And I really question whether or not that's something that I'm dealing with myself at this point. So that's where the fasting has kind of come in, it's just as a means of giving my digestive system a break. And also to see if I can do it. There's it's like a test of will. And
how long have you been fasting?
I'd say for the past year. It started off more of like an intermittent type thing, like 2-3 days a week of like just 12-hour fasts, just to like skip breakfast and see how I felt. And then I moved into doing like Mondays for 24 hours. So just one 24-hour week on Mondays. I figured Mondays are like, they're usually kind of a crappy day to begin with, where you're not really like socializing.
Yeah.
So strategically it made sense to me.
Yeah. Same.
Yeah.
So when you're saying, you said originally that there was a connection between that silent meditation, what was it called? Vipassana?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. The silent meditation and fasting. You said that's where there was a connection there. So is that right? Or did I?
Well, like, a connection with my diet, probably I'd say more accurately,
Okay.
like a connection between the practice and my diet, and just noticing how it was making me feel. Cause it's interesting. Like, I'm sure, I some of the questions you may be asking will revolve around like my history with food and stuff like that. Right. And so when I was a kid, I would go for long periods of time without really knowing that I was hungry or like that I needed to eat. I can really get kind of focused in on a thing that I'm doing, and then it's almost like I'm in this one single track, and then I forget like, oh yeah, you have these basic needs that you gotta get met. And it's just it's funny. It's taken a while to even become aware of that fact, and to learn how to better kind of take care of my own body.
Yeah. That's interesting though, because it's funny that you mentioned that, because there's been a bunch of times throughout this last couple of years when I've been thinking about eating, and then caloric requirements, and when you need to eat and when you don't need to eat. And I have those same memories from being a kid. I had a bunch of cousins, and my grandparents and uncle and aunt had neighboring orchards, and I had a bunch of cousins. And so, when you're a kid, you're just running around playing tag, and you're just for hours. And same thing, like you would have breakfast and then get called in midday, and you have no real awareness of what time of day it is. And they're, come on in, come have some eat. And you'd be like, oh man, I want to go in. And it was a drag to have to go in and eat, because you just be, like you say, so focused on just having fun and doing your thing.
Totally.
And that for me was interesting, because I was remembering back to those times when I was trying to separate physical bodily hunger and emotional hunger, where you're eating and you're not hungry, like the two, separating the two. And I drew on that experience to try to help myself understand what those two differences were. Because I was like, I remember just not being hungry and just wanting to go do something else, like let's go play tag or let's go ride bikes or something like that.
Yeah.
And not feeling that hunger, despite being, highly active for hours on end. And it was a good reminder what different types of hunger are, and whether you really do need to eat or not, or whether you're getting your energy from another, just from movement sometimes.
Yeah. That's an interesting thing. Yeah. I have similar, I've had similar experiences, like as a kid. Yeah.
So when you, so now that what was when you're talking about the not talking and the silent meditation, did you find that as part of that process, or what part of that process would you say you became aware of then digestion, or even just in general internal bodily processes, and then what part of that was digestion?
Yeah, I
10
think,
days is a long time.
yeah. That's a good question. I think it was sort of just even the mere fact of tuning my attention from like the external world to like inward inside, and to just even notice what I was feeling on like that sensation level throughout my body. And it's, it's those sensations that like that you'll feel that tell you, right? Like, oh, I need to eat now, or this is, or you feel like you feel cravings, or like everything's experienced on a sensation level, right?
Mm-hmm.
Did they feed you at set times during the retreat?
They did. Yeah.
So was it like 3 meals a day, or could you just kind of graze?
It was 2 meals really. So it was like, there were 3 times that we would go to the meal hall, but like the first 2 it was like we had an early breakfast, and then we had lunch, and then at like 5 we'd have a piece of fruit and like a cup of tea or something. And I really, by the time 5 o'clock rolled around, I didn't really feel the urge to eat. It was a really interesting experience because, I mean, it's extremely structured. So like every hour of the day is laid out, like what you're doing. And sometimes you're in a hall with a bunch of other people. Sometimes you're allowed to go to your room and do your meditation in your room. And so the structure, I found myself really doing well with that. And so things that like I would notice in my life outside of that kind of environment didn't make their way into that 10 days. Like I would usually feel like cravings for food and stuff like that. In my life outside of the retreat, and I would give into them. And I was really hooked on sugar, and I'd say I still I am still. It's like a thing that I'm really trying to let go of. But when I was on the retreat, I didn't have any of that stuff. I didn't have any access to it. But like after a couple of days, it was just okay. It was like, I don't need that. It was a structured environment that kind of helped.
Did you have sugar withdrawal the first day or 2?
I'd say so. Yeah. Like irritability, fog, like wanting to just sleep all the time. Like, so that was probably spikes in my blood sugar, but that leveled off. And then by the end, it was like very different state of mind. Yeah.
But wouldn't you be exhausted? Like I would think that's mentally draining.
Well, yeah, that's what you would think, right? But there's somehow this thing that happens after a few days where it's like, I often feel like I'm in a fog mentally, and I think it is food related. And I notice, after eating certain foods that I will get far more mentally foggy, than others. But
Do you know what foods those are?
It's usually, it was definitely gluten and dairy before. And now I'm noticing it with even just like a little bit of sugar. So, or like baked goods, even if it's gluten-free stuff, like there's a certain degree of sugar in some of these things, like especially if it's like muffins or cookies. And Steph and I, like, we like to go out for like a cup of tea or coffee, and like that's our kind of guilty pleasure.
It's the tea. It's the tea. And what do you put in your tea?
Oh, I don't put anything in my tea or coffee. Yeah, I just do it black. Yeah, but but on the retreat, like, to answer your question about like the fog, it's like you develop this laser focus that just penetrates right through it, like the sunshine coming through fog. It just dissolves. And so by the end, I found myself in this state of like heightened clarity and like an effortless kind of attentiveness that I didn't ever think that I would be able to experience. I didn't know what it meant to pay attention until I did that retreat. Like to really be attention, like to pay attention in the moment on one thing for an extended period of time. But that development of that attention, and especially turning it in like on the physical sensations, I think is what really helped me develop a more acute awareness of like how food was affecting me after I'd eat it. Because before I had no clue. Yeah.
And would that be a function of eating, having something to eat, and then having to do some kind of task afterwards, so you're not sitting and being outwardly focused on some kind of task, so you're actually giving yourself the time to just go, okay, I had something to eat, and then because you're silent and sometimes by yourself, you're then just left up to your own devices, which in that case was just your body and no sound. So now you're like, oh, okay, I can really focus on these inward processes or these internal processes.
Totally. Yeah. Totally. Yeah. That's it. Yeah.
Would you say you have the same mental clarity after you've had a fast?
That's a great question. I would say it rivals that degree of clarity. Yeah. At the end of a fast, I feel much clearer, and I notice my mood is a little elevated. And I just kind of like, I feel like I'm good to go. And so that's what's really turned me on to it. Because like I've said, like, I think my food issues have come to light more through the way that they've impacted my mood, or like the mental fog that I feel like I've experienced.
It would be neat to do your silent retreat in a fasted state.
It would be intense.
That might be too much. Which actually kind of brings me to my question too, is when you use the word fast, or when you say fast, how do you, what does that mean to you? Like, how would you define it?
Yeah. Not eating anything, except I'll have, like, I find there are a couple things that'll get me through it. Like, I love coffee. So I'll just have like a cup of black coffee in the morning. And I find that helps me with like kind of curb any hunger. And then I'll have another cup, usually around like 1 or 2 in the afternoon. So I'll allow myself that. And I know, like, as long as there's no like cream or sugar in it, like, it's, as far as I understand, it's okay. And then on top of that, and this is actually, I was reminded when I watched the talk that you guys had, I can't remember which one it was, but apple cider vinegar, and having that. And I just recently watched a little thing with Thomas DeLauer, so I might try this, but like, it's for your electrolytes. So like a little drink with apple cider vinegar and lime juice, like a cream of tartar for your potassium levels.
Oh,
Yeah.
Thomas
Makes sense.
DeLauer again.
yeah.
Yeah. He's a stud.
Ninja.
Yeah. Yeah.
So then, so for you, when you say a fast, is it, does it start after a certain time period then? So when you say you'll have a cup of coffee in the morning and then one in the afternoon, that's after having eaten the previous day's dinner at like a
Yeah.
certain time, and then you have to go through a certain number of hours to consider yourself fasted?
Yeah. So, yeah, I guess it's funny because there's like the way that I think of fasting, and then there are like the more technical like explanations or like more clinical language around that, which I'm not very familiar with. But in my kind of basic understanding, like if I'm doing a 24-hour fast, I'm not having anything other than like coffee, water, or apple cider vinegar, and I'll start it on the Sunday night after dinner, and so try to eat like a substantial amount, like a good meal on the Sunday night, and then wait until Monday night for dinner.
Okay, I gotta know, what are you eating before you fast?
So before I fast, I'm not as strict with that. As a matter of fact, like there have been some times that I've fasted, like over the past couple months, like my fasting kind of regime got thrown off with the pandemic when my routines sort of had to get reestablished. So there were a couple times in there where I fasted, like after having like just like a sleeve of like gluten-free cookies, and then feeling like ass afterwards and being like, I can't feel this way. So I'm just not going to eat for 24 hours.
Yeah.
So that's definitely not the way to do it. But it was like the best mood boost, because I felt terrible after eating those cookies. And then within 24 hours, I was like, man, I feel great.
Yeah.
And it's like, I'm never going to eat those again.
But then that creates a bad relationship with food then, if you're thinking, oh, well, if I've been bad,
totally,
then I'm going to not eat for 24 hours.
You're absolutely right. Yeah. It's not a healthy thing that I'm endorsing by any means. But it's definitely not healthy at all. The last fast that I did was 36-hour fast. And that was
Last week?
I think around the same time you did yours, right, Chrissy?
Yep. Yeah, exact same.
Yeah, like Sunday night to Monday or to Tuesday morning.
Yep.
And that was, so I ate like, I think I had like salmon with kale and like a salad with olive oil and lemon juice and like a good dinner, and then in a substantial amount. And then coming off it, I wanted to experiment with like a broth. So I have this Organica like broth, the powder form. And so I had that just by itself to break the fast. And then within like 3 hours of that, I had a real meal, which was, I think was like eggs and like some mixed greens, and like might have been like a protein, like a meat in there too. But yeah, so I've been coming to understand, this is actually partially through watching what you guys were talking about. Like you don't mix your carbs and your protein. You should.
I can't. It just really upsets my stomach. It just does not like it. So I just choose not to.
Right.
Just those two together, or like any carb and a protein, or certain carbs and a protein, like simple carbs and a protein?
Yeah. Like bread and eggs, I just can't have off of it when I break a fast.
Oh, okay. When you break fast.
Yeah.
But in other times.
But later.
Okay.
Yeah. Like today I had sourdough bread with my eggs at lunch.
Yeah.
And I was fine.
But had you fasted last night, it would have been trouble.
Well, I did fast. I did an 18-hour fast that I came off of. So I just had, I actually had kombucha to break my fast this morning.
Oh, wow. How'd that go?
It was great.
Oh,
I know I
that's
didn't
good.
get drunk.
Yeah. Yeah. If ever there was a time. That would have
Yeah,
been it.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
Wow. So then those are actually two good examples of then experience that you've had, John, with how not to start a fast and how to
Yeah.
start one. And then also, so do you find then how you approach them or prepare for them has an impact on how easy or how hard they are?
Yeah, like if I'm mentally dialed in and I'm planning it ahead, I find the process of getting through it is much easier. So if I a couple days ahead of time, I'm like, okay, I'm doing this 24-hour fast starting Sunday night. There's no doubting that I'm going to get through it.
Yeah.
The times that I've been more like on a whim with it, I'm like, maybe I'll just try a fast right now. It's much harder to, I find, stick with the with the plan.
Do you use an app to follow your fast?
No. I probably wouldn't use an app. I know just how my brain works, so I doubt that. I mean, I'd be open to checking it out,
But you don't need it.
I like the idea of just being like, okay, I'm going to do this and done. It's going to happen.
Did it help you when you knew that I was doing the 36-hour the same time as you? Like, was that motivating? Yeah, it was for me too. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, I wonder how this is going to go for you too. And then it's just nice to have a bit of a debrief after.
Yeah. I love that part.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Oh, describe that. What do you mean by you guys both?
Well, because we emailed each other and I was like, oh, well, how did it go? And yeah, and it was just nice it's like, okay, I was accountable to John this time, not you.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh, how did it go?
Yeah.
It was kind of like a celebration or a reward for, okay, somebody knew that I did it for 36 hours other than myself and the app.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. I found that too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, it just helps you feel like a little less alone with the whole thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
It wasn't competitive though. Like,
No.
would you, no. It was
No,
just
I didn't feel that way. Yeah, it was just like, okay, well, I have to do this. Like,
yes.
And so it eliminated any kind of doubtful thinking in a way, or
well, because maybe at the 24-hour mark, you're like, oh well, I kind of want that sleeve of cookies now, so I guess I can.
So was your
I can't tell Chrissy I had a sleeve of cookies.
But I'll find out.
That's funny.
Yeah, you have your connections. Yeah.
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 So having said all that, was your first one intentional then, or was it just like you say, and just got, I'll give it a go, like with no preparation? Do you remember how long ago was your first one, if you remember? And then can you remember if you planned it or whether it was just off the cuff?
Yeah, the first one I did was like, I'd say late last summer. And I had a client of mine who he had lost a ton of weight, and he lost a lot through the training that we'd been doing together, but then he like really slimmed down when he started to fast. He was doing a keto diet prior to trying the fasting, but he was actually—
Did you recommend the fasting?
No. He said he was going to do it. And at the time, like, I knew of it. I'd been hearing it, like, because I listened to Joe Rogan, and I like, Tim Ferriss or like the Peter Attia like podcast. And they had all been talking about it. So I like is sort of buzzing around, but I never really paid enough attention to it. And then he said that he was going to do it. And my initial reaction, just thinking about my own stuff, was thinking, oh, I don't know about that, because for probably the past 10 years, I've had a slightly elevated TSH, like thyroid stimulating hormone, and a slightly underactive thyroid that's like leveled off now, where it's in the okay zone. And so in my kind of misinformed state, I thought, man, I shouldn't fast because it's not good for my thyroid. Not understanding until actually I saw a video by Dr. Fung talking about the differences between fasting and just like, eating, but like not eating enough calories. And I think what contributed to my thyroid levels was like, I was training like crazy. I was just like, at the time I was swimming like all the time. And I just was not eating properly, and like really pushing myself, and like doing a lot of strength training too, and not eating enough. And I think that's probably what did it, in response to, just not getting enough fuel in the system. I think my metabolism just slowed down by, my thyroid slowing down. So
you would have had some degree of adrenal fatigue, I would imagine, and
yeah,
which would be messing up the thyroid and your probably even your thyroid numbers and everything.
Yeah. I think that sounds right. Yeah.
There's so have you, after having done, how many have you done then since then? Or do you consider, so do you do a basic, or do you do a minimum like 12 and 12 or 16-8 or 14-10? Like, do you do a daily thing like that, or on, I think you're saying that you're doing 24 hours once a week right now. When you're not doing that, do you eat within a certain window then in a day, or do you just do whatever, however the day throws?
Outside of the single fast every week, I'm not doing anything else.
Yeah.
So
oh yeah, sorry, what were you going?
No, that's it. Yeah.
I was going to ask, what's your main goal or your purpose for fasting? What are you trying to achieve? Is it just the mental clarity, or is there weight loss, or?
It's trying to get to the bottom of the way food is impacting me in the way that I function, I think. And just trying to reach a state where I feel more like alert and awake and like present in my life. Because at my worst points, like I think back to like my late 20s, like I hadn't really discovered that I had a lactose intolerance or a gluten intolerance. And I was also like going through a pretty challenging relationship with somebody. We were living together. It was very stressful. And it was just this whole combination of events and the way
Did you use fuel, or did you use food as a sort of like coping mechanism at that point? Totally.
Yeah. I would say so.
So were you heavier then?
Yeah. Like before I did the meditation retreat, I'm like 6 feet tall. Before I did the retreat, I was 230, which is the heaviest I've ever been. And I was like doing a lot of heavy weightlifting and stuff like that. But I was like heavy. I see pictures of myself, like my face. I'm like, who the hell's that? And it just like, it just looked inflamed.
Yeah.
And so that was sort of the apex of like the difficult situation, like with my partner at the time, combined with the food intolerances that I didn't have a clue about, and the kind of stress that I was dealing with all that, and really feeling like I was just in a fog all the time, and couldn't really get a clear picture on things. and didn't really feel like I was functioning to my full like capacity or like my full potential. So it's just been a gradual process of like kind of waking up out of that and trying to learn what works well for my like type, my body, you know, and what doesn't, just to feel like I'm like functioning at a more optimal level, I think. Yeah.
Do you have a gauge for when you know that you've hit a tipping point with as far as the mental fog? Because to me, that's a really interesting. It's such an interesting, I don't know, word or description. Because until I had even heard it, or until you become almost aware of it in a hindsight point of view, you don't know you're in a fog. You can't see it. It's all around you. And then you get out of the fog and then you're like, oh, okay, I was in a fog there. And so I remember hearing that term for the first time, and it didn't mean anything to me. Like I was like, what do you mean by mental fog? Like it literally came across the page and I was reading about it or something like that. And it just doesn't have any meaning to it. So when you look back on it, or when you say now, mental fog, do you have instances now where you still realize, you get to a point and then you become self-aware and you're like, I'm in a mental fog right now, or I'm foggy or something like that?
Yeah.
So when that happens, how do you know it's happening? Like, how are you able to, what kind of pulls you aside and helps you to realize that you're in a foggy state, and to like then start to examine what's gone on in the previous whatever day or something like that that's contributed to that fog?
Yeah, that's a good question. Wow. Yeah, that's a really good point too, that you made, like not even knowing that you're in it. For a long time, I think that's sort of where I was functioning, not knowing I was in it, or like knowing that there was something that wasn't quite right, but then thinking like, what's wrong with you? Like, you're fine, you know, just tough it out. Just keep training and just keep doing your thing, you know?
Yeah.
But then it was, I think, you know, to go back to the retreat, that was a moment of clarity at the end of that. Like, oh, I could feel this much better. And then in the past, I'd say 2.5 years, I've been running marathons. So I've been like training and going on like a long run a week. Usually it's like been fairly consistent over the past couple of years. And that's really, really helped. Like the training regime and the need for my body to function at a certain like level in order to hit my goals has really been kind of like a crucible of like where things are a little bit more intensified. So like I need to be eating properly in order to function better. And I'll see the direct result of what in my performance.
Sorry, I have a question about how do you incorporate your fasting in your training regime?
See, that's a really good question, because that's something that I'm struggling with right now. And I feel like when the training is more intense, like I can get away with the 12-hour fasting kind of windows. The 24s are harder. I don't want to put my body through like the stress, especially like a long run when I've just fasted for 24 hours. But, you know, I've been just sort of sifting through the information and trying to get a sense of how to go about it. Whether it's like through the keto combined with the fasting kind of protocol or what, because I know for sure that I'll have these energy gels or these sugars when I'm like, especially on the marathons, like the long runs where I need the sugar to perform, and I'll have it. And then within a couple minutes, I'll just notice this kind of low level, like sensation, like throughout my body of like feeling like I'm running through just a little bit of quicksand. Yeah. And I'm like, what's going on there? I don't know. Like my body just does not seem to be responding well to that. So it seems to be hindering my performance. Like there's a feeling like I could be going a lot faster here, but I'm not, because there's something going on with my diet. And I haven't gotten to the bottom of it, but it's mainly because I've been doing my own research and
Now I'm going to go here, John. Are you going to do an elimination diet to figure out what your intolerances are? I'm saying it like that because Stephanie's doing it as well.
Yeah.
So it might be a good time. Like, would you consider doing that?
Yeah. We've been talking about that, and basically this week, this is where it's starting. So, because the pandemic is like, with the self-isolation, it's been a time of like being more aware of of how the food that I'm eating is affecting me. And then just like another thing to eliminate, like first it was dairy, then it was gluten. Now it's like any kind of, like more like simple sugars, I guess. Where it's just like, I got to get rid of that and just try it for a week.
So do you differentiate when you say a simple sugar, or when you say sugars, like at the beginning, do you differentiate between a processed sugar that's readily available, like your example of a pastry or muffin, and then a fruit or something that has higher naturally occurring quantities of sugar, like a sweet potato or something like that?
Yeah, that's a good question. At this point, I'm looking at eliminating all of it. But if I was to take a more kind of lenient approach, I'd probably include like a little bit of fruit in the sweet potato, and allow myself that at least. But
especially after a training session or something like that.
Exactly. Yeah.
So have you done, so because
like, what do you eat after a run? Oh, sorry.
Yeah, that was actually that actually dovetails into my question. Have you, number one, have you broken a fast with a workout? And it sounds to me like you have, like it sounds to me like you've run in a fasted state.
I've tried.
So have you done different types of metabolic demands, breaking a fast with different metabolic demands? And then also to Chrissy's question, what do you normally do? Or actually, I guess it's maybe a separate question. So maybe if you want to go Chrissy's first. What was yours?
Just what do you eat after you?
What do you eat after a workout?
Just what do you eat prior to a long run or after?
Yeah. Prior to a long run, I was getting away with oatmeal with like sliced apple, raisins, like maybe a little bit of coconut milk, and like take like a magnesium supplement, because if I don't, I notice I can get cramped up. That's usually what I would have in a coffee.
This is pre-run.
Pre-run, yeah, and try to have it like long enough before the run that it wouldn't be like, churning around inside me. And then afterwards, usually like eggs with some kind of like huevos rancheros, I think it's called. Eggs over nachos, and because especially after a long one, it's just like you get so hungry, and there's so much salt in the nachos. It's like, oh, it's so good. Yeah.
So have you done different metabolic demands then in a fasted state? So a run would be one type, and then something like a more intense weightlifting session with a recovery. Like, have you done different things when you're fasted?
Yeah, I've tried. The run. I've done some runs, and it's not like I couldn't go more than 8 kilometers. I feel like that's really pushing it. Usually, I feel like I can get away with like 5 at like a lighter pace. I'll feel all right if I'm in a fasted state. Because I'm still wary about pushing my body without really quite having the knowledge base around how to do the fasting or like put my body into like more of a state of ketosis for distance running. Like I know that there are people who do it, but I don't know enough about it to feel like I can go all in on it yet. And then with the metabolic stuff, like lately I've been doing more like kettlebell work, like short training duration, and in a fasted state that seems to be fine. Yeah.
Short duration with like allowing yourself a full recovery and not limiting your recovery or whatever, or
Yeah.
okay. Yeah, I'm the same. I've noticed. I was just having this conversation with someone the other day, and we were talking about he's a client buddy, and he was talking about in a fasted state, he can perform at a lower level. So instead of his 11 out of 10, I think is what he called it. Instead of a 11 out of 10, he has to be around an 8 out of 10, but he said he can go forever. So if he's at a lower pace, he could he was using motocrossing and dirt biking as his example. And he says, yeah, instead of where I'm really throwing the bike around for maybe a couple hours, at my threshold, he says, instead I can go an 8 out of 10, but he says I can go all day like that. And so he really distinguishes the two differences. And the example I was giving was similar to his. I said I can fast. I think the longest I fasted was about a 40-hour or something like that, and then did heavy weightlifting. So I think I was doing deadlifts or squats or something like that, which is a very high neurological demand. But I was allowing myself pretty much unlimited recovery. So I would just start my next set when I felt like starting it. And I found that no problem at all. Like it was, cool. I felt better than usual, I guess. The absolute weights probably weren't as high, but my mental state was better. And then I've also done, I think it was about a 36-hour or something like that fast, and then did boxing after that, where it's, very high cardiovascular turnover and high intensity bursts with very little recovery time and for minutes at a time. And it was awful. Like it was such a marked difference between those two demands and what I was able to do in a fasted state.
Yeah.
The boxing one, I was just like, I'd go for 30 or 40 seconds or maybe a minute. And then I'd be like, my battery would just drain.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. It can be so intense, boxing.
Yeah.
Like,
oh yeah. Yeah. Instead of having and it was just the difference between the two is crazy because it's just normally in that state I can find real crispness in terms of mental focus and things like that, deep into the 45 minutes or an hour when I'm not fasted. But when I'm fasted, the tank just drops down, and it must be just your body's way of just saying, okay, like rein this in. This isn't sustainable,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But
yeah, it's interesting. It makes me think that people like depending, like there's no one size fits all approach, like at least that's sort of what I'm coming to the conclusion of here. Like people have different, almost like physiological types in terms of what their bodies require. And, I don't know about how fasting applies to that, but like, I think diet wise, people have different body types that require different types of food to be really, to reach that optimal health level.
So yeah, and actually that's a good point. So it kind of, it almost creates its own question there. So as a result of fasting, has fasting disallowed, or has it drawn enough of a highlight on any particular food or maybe dish or anything like that you used to eat that you don't eat anymore as a result of fasting? So fasting came along and then it was apparent enough as a result of it that you're going, oh, so this is what's been bugging me so much. And so now you don't eat that same thing anymore as a result of gaining that knowledge through fasting.
Huh. That's a good
Or
one.
would you, like you were already doing, so you said gluten and dairy, but was that something that you had already started to eliminate before you'd started fasting?
Yeah. It started with the dairy, and then the gluten followed that within a couple of years. And now I think what it is just like sugars, like refined sugar, like anything baked, which is more of like the type of thing I'll reach for if I'm eating emotionally.
Yeah.
Mhm. Okay, what's your binge?
I was gonna say,
Oh,
here goes Gracie. This is your area. Oh,
Yeah.
let's talk about the
My
emotional.
favorite.
I already
Yeah.
mentioned the sleeve of cookies. It's like I can't buy them.
And what
because
kind though? Like what kind?
They're these like
Oh.
gluten-free thing. They're called like Kinnick, I think is the brand. It's like funny.
Nick, I know those.
Yeah, they're kind of like Oreos. Oh man, yeah. So those for sure. And then these like Haagen-Dazs ice cream bars. They're like made with coconut milk, and they're just lethal. So that's probably the number one thing. Like if I know that they're around, I know that I'm gonna use up a lot of my willpower just not eating them. So
that is that's actually a really good awareness. I like the way that you say that. It's almost like I don't think I've heard that said before. So it takes energy. It takes, personal energy, getting burned up just in willpower to not have that thing. I've never thought about that. That's actually a really good awareness of the use of energy. Like
I guess that's become clearer to me too. It's like, well, just don't get them when you're grocery shopping. Yeah. And then you have that extra energy that you could just use for more like productive things than not eating, stuff that's horrible for you.
So that actually is a good question. And I'm not sure which one of us asked it, Chrissy, of each other, but we were talking about having a food in the house versus not having a food in the house. So I think Chrissy said that she doesn't allow.
Oh, and that was me.
Yeah, and you don't allow yourself to have, what was it in the house? I forgot what it was now. There was something that you said. Was it
just
chocolate?
Yeah. Yep. Even baking chocolate chips, I can't even have those.
Yeah. Wow.
Because they won't get into the thing I bake. I just eat them.
Yeah.
Wow. That's like the Achilles heel. You just don't get it.
Yeah, just don't get it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were talking about that a little bit, and the difference.
It's hard when you're at the grocery store
to just not buy them, or it's hard when you're at the grocery store and seeing them, and then realizing, and then going. When you say it's hard at the grocery store, is it because you're going through that tough decision-making process to get them or not? Like after seeing them? Is that the tough part at the grocery store?
And I think it's just habit, because it was stuff that I always, it's just habit that there's just certain items I always purchase, and chocolate and chocolate chips is just part of it because I like to bake.
Yeah.
So, so I haven't been baking much. But I just back to John about when you and Steph go out for tea and goodies. So that's part of what you guys do sort of as your fun. So how is that your eating sort of impacted that?
Well, gradually we've been kind of scaling back on that kind of thing. And now, like, we're not.
Just
we're
for both of you.
Yeah. We're embarking on this elimination diet. And so the intention behind it is to
I don't know
heal.
if we should tell Mark about this elimination diet.
Oh, well, also
should we tell
realize
Mark
that it's not just me that you're telling either.
Well, that's true. Like, but it's
This is going out to Facebook and YouTube. So you're only saying what you're comfortable saying.
Yeah.
Ideally.
Sure.
Ideally.
Yeah. Well, Steph's really eliminating a lot. I mean, just managing her own health, like lectin's the big one. And so I'm just learning about this as she's learning about it. But like, they're found in like, nightshades. They're found in
Things with seeds.
Yeah. And peanuts, I think, is part in cashews.
Gluten.
Yeah, gluten. So it's a huge elimination on her part. So we discussed this yesterday, what we were each going to eliminate, and so she said, yeah, she's eliminating all that stuff that you mentioned, and I'm going to be eliminating, well, any form of sugar, and in as strictly as I can. So, like even the healthier sugars like fruits and potatoes and sweet potatoes. So just meat and greens basically. And I'm debating whether or not I should take eggs out because I'm not sure how they're affecting me either. So.
Because she has a real problem with eggs, apparently.
Yeah, she just realized that. Yeah. So. Yeah.
Do you notice when you say, so other than mental fog, when you have something like those things that you're starting to think that you're figure you're intolerant towards, is it more of a mental fog issue, or do you actually also have digestive issues? Like, do you feel bloated or stuff like that?
Yeah. I'll get bloating.
Yeah.
So the intolerances at their worst, it was bloating. It was like perpetual inflammation, mental fog, like it just like a constant mental fog too, that like you mentioned earlier, like not even an awareness that I was in it. And, but then an impact on my mood too, which felt like it was like there was so much required of my digestion that I had like no energy to even be in a good mood. It was just, and I started to notice it when I became lactose intolerant, because I'd have a cup of coffee with cream in it, and I expect to feel that jolt of energy from the caffeine, and instead it would, like, I started to plummet, and I felt this like just dull sense of like no energy, and like an abdominal kind of discomfort too. So that was probably like at its worst, like earlier on, as I was becoming aware of what I was intolerant to. But like as time has passed, it's just become more and more subtle. So now I'll just notice like subtle sensations, like in my gut, stuff like that, or like a subtle kind of fog slipping in. Like I have a more heightened awareness of when these things are happening. So so I guess it's become more, I've noticed the subtler differences on the different kinds of body sensations and whatnot.
When you have fruit, do you notice your response to your glycemic index? Because you seem sensitive to sugar. Do you notice similarities with the fruit?
Yeah, it's similar. Yeah.
You do?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Because I would say I have that too.
Really?
So,
what do you know?
Yeah. So are you careful with fruit then? It's just sort of the same. It's like this quick rush of like energy, and then it's almost like I need to have a nap.
Yeah. Like it
Yeah, like
spikes.
it's just this, you're just riding the wave. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, that seems to be the case for me too.
Yeah.
Like, or like I'll feel like I need to take a nap. But when I'm avoiding sugar and like pretty clean with the diet, things feel steady. And it's just a way better place to be. So yeah.
So we had something that Chrissy and I were talking about last week was the emotional eating and like we were talking about earlier, like using it as a coping mechanism. And I put the question forward to her what her opinion was on. So we talked a little bit about addiction and how, easily identifiable or labeled substances that are addictive, or somebody that's labeled as an addict. So you got, any kind of drug or whatever. They're obvious examples of things that challenge people that have addictions. But then you get to something that are more subtle, like caffeine or just food in general, when you're using food to mask something or whatever. So we were talking about just addiction in general, and then how people see it differently. So some addicts, or alcohol was was the example that I used, where I used the example of Russell, what's his name? The comedian. I want to say I've got Russell Crowe in my head, but it's not
Brand?
Russell Brand.
Russell Brand, yeah.
Okay.
So he was he was talking about not being able to be around a given drug because he used to be addicted to drugs in a bad way. So it brings me back to our conversation. We were talking about not being able to buy something at the grocery store and bring it home. So for me, it's chocolate. It's funny. Like, I know the exact sleeve of cookies that you're talking about, the Kinnikinnick ones. So the fact that I know it, it's just like anything else, like a alcoholic going, oh yeah, I know that. I know Jim Beam. That's my favorite. So with that in mind, as you got farther down the road, we were talking about what you consider yourself successful. And I remember hearing from somebody that had gone through the Alcoholics Anonymous program, and he didn't really realize that he considered himself to not be an alcoholic anymore was when he could actually have alcohol in his house or go out for a drink or two with colleagues or friends and just have one or two and then shut it down and have the capacity to be able to control himself around that thing.
Oh, yeah.
So have you experienced any of that up until now? Like, when we're talking about the hypothetical situation of being in the grocery store and going through that process, should I buy it? Should I not? Like, I can't have this in the house because I know that it's there and it'll take up willpower and things like that.
Yeah.
So, it's more of an opinion thing. I'm interested to get people's take on that realize that they have that issue, but and so far have dealt with it in a certain way.
Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah. You guys mentioned Gabor Mate, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And I've got a book of his too, the When the Body Says No.
Mm-hmm.
And I do I think there's a lot of it makes a lot of sense what he talks about with addiction and how we can use different substances, whether it's like abusing drugs or alcohol or food to cope with basically like the things that we don't want to feel, like to kind of push it down and to allow us to avoid the things that we don't want to feel, and or in response to some form of trauma.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that we the memory of which we don't want to feel. And so yeah, when it comes to food, I think I definitely have. There have been times in my life when I've been a more emotional eater than others, and so I think I'm addicted to sugar, and probably I'd say caffeine too. Like I love coffee, and like just black, and it's great. I'll look forward to it the night before I go to bed. like I'm gonna have a really good cup of coffee.
Me too.
And I justify it. Yeah, like it's like, okay, there could be worse things to be.
Oh yeah. Especially if it's what's 2 cups a day, like your average. Is that kind of what you limit yourself to?
Yeah, 2 or 3. Yeah.
Yeah.
But what size is your cup?
That's a really good question. Yeah.
Is it a real cup or is it like a pint?
It's like it's a big cup. The cup size has grown over the years, so just put it that way. Yeah. Yeah. So it's probably like it'd probably be like two to 3 grandes from Starbucks, which are big, right?
Yeah.
It's not like 8 ounces. That's probably like.
You drink a black grande from Starbucks.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah.
Because that's like high octane to me.
Yeah.
Because that gives me heart palpitations when I have their coffee.
Oh really? Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. You don't find that.
I think I've probably developed a bit of a tolerance. Maybe I have a friend of mine. I don't know how he does it. He'll get like a grande. I don't know what they call it. They're different levels, but you get like a coffee with an espresso shot in it, and he gets like 2 espresso shots in like a grande blonde roast. I'm like, how do you still have a heart?
Yeah, that is crazy.
And is he overweight?
Mildly, not especially. I mean, now he's not actually. He's struggled a bit with that, but yeah, he's learning to manage. But yeah. So about the like having it in the house and not, being okay with it being there and not having it kind of control me. I'm like, I don't know if I'll get to that point. I think I could though, because I see it sort of like now when I'm eating healthier food, like I just feel more relaxed when I'm eating it because I know like later on I'm gonna feel better for it. Versus like when I'm indulging in something that I know is not gonna affect me very well in like the next few hours or the next day. It's almost like I can't fully enjoy it because it's like I know I'm just gonna feel terrible after, like physically. And
what about like an emotional trigger when you're sitting with your family? Like, are you guys like my family where you're sitting around and there's lots of food and you just kind of eat mindlessly?
There has definitely been, yeah, I've definitely been a mindless eater, like totally.
Yeah.
And I had an ex-girlfriend of mine when we were together. She had no problems with pointing everything out that I was doing that I was not aware of. And I found it really annoying. But it was stuff that I also needed to hear, which is why it was annoying. Cause it's like, I know you're right. But how come I didn't realize that myself? So yeah, I would just mindlessly go just plow through like bags of chips and stuff like that. And I think it had something to do with like the not being aware that I was hungry for because I'd be focused on another thing, like what we were talking about earlier. And then all of a sudden being really hungry and then just like eating whatever. And yeah, like my relationship with food has come a long way. Like there's still stuff that I'm like struggling with, but if I look back, it's like, man, it's improved over the years. That's for sure.
Yeah, that's a cool state to get to where you have that realization. You're able to look in the rearview mirror and go, can't believe that was what I was dealing with, or the way that you had let it get to a point where you're like, I can't believe I was there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It is a cool state. Yeah.
So I think the one thing that I did want to ask, which was the one at the beginning where I was looking for direction from you guys, your opinion on what would be the best way to do this. So the information that I've been getting about fasting and things like that is from a podcast and kind of listening to it. Actually, no, that's not true. I think I first initially found out about it listening to a podcast, but subsequent amounts of information and things that I've gotten from it has just been through reading, actually, unusually. So for a direction for this that we're doing here right now, could you see it, would you guys see it being more valuable as a podcast that you can listen to as an audio, or something that you would see that you would watch on YouTube, or would it be like a virtual meeting space for smaller groups of people that, or, well, it doesn't have to be smaller. I think you can go up to like 99 people with any given meeting space. But yeah, that was that nugget that I put at the beginning.
What does that look like if it's a meeting space? Is it in Zoom or?
I guess so. Like it would be what we're doing here right now, but with whatever, 3, 5, 10, a dozen people, just having done a fast for whatever given time it was.
Like that is very interesting for me. I don't think there's a lot of opportunities for people to participate in something like that.
Yeah.
I think it would be popular.
Yeah. I'm just thinking about, not reinventing the wheel and rather provide something that's not already there.
It's interesting. Yeah. Like, is that the intention that you had in starting this? Like, in creating more of a community where people can kind of all participate and support each other in that.
Yeah.
That
and then how would that be advertised for people?
That I think would be fairly easy to take care of in terms of being able to get it out there. I just was wondering what kind of, as people that fast, what sort of the question would be is to both of you and to myself as well, but for people that all three of us fast, what kind of a thing would interest us in terms of providing us with some kind of value that's not already there that you would be interested in doing. So when I put it forth to Chrissy initially, I was thinking, it'd be kind of neat to just have like satellite hubs where people that are somewhat local, even though they're going to possibly be meeting virtually, like the way that we're doing now, even if we know that we're somewhat at arm's reach and we might see each other here or there, might have more power than somebody that's fasting on the other side of the world, but still meeting up individually or virtually, sorry. But anyway, the question is like what kind of service could be provided that would appeal to someone.
Like I would have loved to have been able to have this chat when John and I finished the 36-hour fast, because I would have loved to have seen your emotion and experienced the same timing. We both finished the same time. How are you feeling? Just having that chat. In an email you lose that emotional part, and I guess that's what I like about having this experience.
Actually, you know what, I really like that. I kind of like that idea, because I noticed that it's a different enough mental perspective, or I am in a different enough mental state or all around state when I'm deep into a fast, or having just finished a challenging fast, that my mindset, my perspective is different enough from what it is right now after having just a normal day and just having eaten a couple hours ago. I definitely second that. It would be interesting to have a kind of a virtual meetup with anybody that's in a state where they have just finished a fast and things that they've learned. Because after having done as many as I've done now, I still learn things every single time where I'll have some kind of aha moment and I'll be like, I never thought about this way, or I'll discover some
Yeah.
tip that I didn't realize was a good strategy that I hadn't heard of before.
You know, because we all seem to be the same. We're all learning, and we're, you know, sourcing all kinds of information, you know, just sharing of the information and different types of food that we've experienced that are helpful. Just, you know, having that conversation to share I enjoy that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a neat idea to talk at the end too, when you're in that state and you can kind of capture
Yeah.
where you're at, and it would just be I think a very different conversation.
It kind of a reflective practice of you would sort of, you know, your 2 stars and a wish for the next one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that idea. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So how about this then?
And so how, like, okay.
I'm thinking of, so I actually have set up an informal, but fairly formal and somewhat written in stone, commitment to do a 72-hour fast with a couple other people that haven't done it. And we were going to officially start it next Saturday, midday. So
Okay.
anybody, so why don't we just say this right now, and maybe I can mine around and search around for anybody that's wanting to challenge themselves with a fast on the Fasting Method Facebook page.
Okay.
And we could finish the fast. Will have only been in it for whatever it'll be, say 30-ish hours on Sunday night, but it's not all about me. So anybody that's doing a 24-hour fast that is challenged could do it from Saturday to Sunday. We could do the same thing Sunday night or Monday night, you know, move it, have it be able to have shift a day or something like that. So yeah, I like that. Okay.
Yeah.
Gives me something to think about, or gives us something to think about for.
And so what time is the fast starting at? Saturday morning?
No, Saturday midday. So it'll be, I will have had my last meal Saturday midday so that I can go till Tuesday. I have to be able to make it to Tuesday, like 7 p.m. or something like that.
Wow.
So that'll be just because I have to eat before that one. So I'll be going to do kickboxing on Tuesday in a PM, and I will have had to have something to eat before then.
For sure.
And so is this your longest fast you've ever done?
Yeah, 72 will be. Yeah. I've done a 40, whatever.
Okay.
Almost a 48, which was a lot easier than I thought.
John, how are you feeling about a 72?
A 72 that's a long time.
Yes.
Not gonna lie. I feel like I could commit to it like 24 to 36, because we're also doing the elimination diet too. So
that would be too many things on your plate, maybe.
It might be a little much to juggle. Like throwing it. Like I would love to give that a shot. Like 72. Like I've heard of people doing like 7 to 10 day fasts. I'm like I'm like mentally I'm not there yet, but it sounds like it's like the test of willpower. It's like that it just sounds like something that would be cool to try, just to see. Also, like the state of consciousness that you'd be in after 72 hours. I'm really interested to hear what that'll do to you.
Yeah, how you're feeling.
And so and actually maybe the caveat here, the qualifier I would say is that I've gotten to 44 hours after having done other ones before it. So I've built up to a confident 46 hours with a whole bunch of hacks and knowing what my body needs in order to be able to support 46 hours. So it's uncharted territory. I have no idea what that extra day will add on. But going by the first 48 and how I feel then, I'm pretty confident I can get to 72, but like it's uncharted territories for me. But so it's a goal. It's definitely not a.
And will it help you knowing that there's other people making it to the 72 hours?
Yeah, I think so. I think it would be, No, not necessarily. So I think it would be, but I mean, I think that's maybe the way I'm already wired. So I don't mind going
Like
out.
for
I
me,
don't
if I
mind doing
knew
that.
that you're doing it, I would do it.
What, a 72 or just any
Yeah, like if I
fast?
knew that, okay, or just if I knew that, yeah, the 72 gone that far. If I knew that there was people that we were going to do it together, that would inspire me to try it.
Oh, I see. Well, so if I were to answer that honestly, I would say I would rather whoever is doing a fast at the time would be doing one that would
Hmm.
have a similar amount of challenge than I would see it. So the reason why I
Yes.
want to try 72 is because it's within that 3-day window. So 72 hours is probably my logical limit. So based on everything that I've read and what I know and what my body is doing, for me for now, the 72 hours is interesting because I see that as my hard cutoff point. I wouldn't go beyond that right now without getting monitored by a doctor. So I know my body enough and I know
Yeah.
enough about it, like just on a objective level. And I know enough about a 48-hour fast from a subjective level. So I feel like I can confidently combine those two and not require being monitored, like going up to that 3-day point. But then a bunch of physiological things happen after that point, like after 3 days, that
Hmm.
for me to go beyond that, I think it would be irresponsible to myself to push past that point just to say that I did 4 days or something like that, or 5 days. I don't think that would be, it doesn't hold any kind of purpose for me to get to that point, but 72 hours does. So having known what it's like to do a 48, I see the first 48 as no problem. For me, the focus will be on that 3rd day, where that's where I'm really going to be tuned into what's going on. So that's my long way of answering. If somebody has just finished doing a 24 and they haven't gone that extended part, I I think I'd almost be more stressful knowing that somebody that's never done a fast before goes, "Oh, I'm going to try it too, and I'll be there with you, and we'll do it together." I think I'd be too worried about
Yeah.
the other person pushing themselves too far. But I think
Yeah.
if somebody else is in a similar boat to me, and
Yeah.
for them, 24 hours is going to be a challenge. If they started their 24-hour
Hmm.
and that was a similar challenge, then I would feel like there was some cohesiveness there, some it would feel like empowering, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like people who are at your level of experience and knowledge, like more on that.
Yeah, and then not only that, but just even that the person that's challenging themselves is like, so some people they'll do a 3-day and not even bat an eye. And well, like I was using the example of George St. Pierre with Chrissy. So he does a 2 or 3-day fast once every month and just trains the whole way through. Doesn't train at the same level, but he's still training
Wow.
in a 3-day fasted state. So for somebody like that, yeah, he's, everybody's kind of at different capabilities and things like that.
Yeah.
So,
I actually, can I ask you, like, when you're doing the 3 days, like what are you doing for electrolytes? What
um,
take on that?
yeah, so I've gotten it to a point where, um, from what I've read, there's people that go from all the way from one end of the spectrum where they do dry fasting. So that's as extreme as you can get. They don't drink any water. They don't take in anything. Like they consider fasting to be, you can have air and breathing and that's it. And so I think that's crazy. And then there's
Wow.
other people, that consider fasting as, um, any amount of electrolyte drink as long as there's no carbohydrates in it, any amount of fats, soup broth, even proteins. So basically they're ketogenic. And so
Mhm.
they're way over here and they're taking in lots of nutrients, but they're considering themselves in a fasted state because they're not having any carbs. Basically, they're just ketogenic. So for myself, I think based on what I've read, what I think is reasonable is that number one, you should have the very least, you should be able to give yourself water. But then as far as electrolytes, and kind of reading a little bit about traditional fasting methods, is that you'd have to take care of your minerals and electrolytes, you'd add sea salt to your water. So that's kind of my gold standard, and I try to go with that. But when I get a hunger situation, I'll have like a sip of black coffee or a tablespoon of olive oil at a time, and then that's it. So
Really?
those three things, it would either be salt water or black coffee or tea, like any like herbal tea, or like a spoon of oil. So just olive oil or something like that, and then that's it.
Wow. I've never heard of the oil.
Yeah, that was more, I think I don't know that anybody, I'm trying to think if I've read that from anywhere else. That was more my addition for a trick that some people do to get themselves into a ketogenic state, where when they're wanting to get into ketosis, they'll allow themselves just pure fat so that you don't get any kind of glycemic response or insulin response. And then it's also, you get a bunch of calories in there. And if you're going to get into any of those gluconeogenesis, if you're going to get into that state, having extra exogenous fat is not going to hinder that at all, or change that state at all, or the speed of that state. So
right.
And then the black coffee is really just kind of like the same tactic as yourself, where you have a little bit of black coffee when you feel hungry. And initially I just was including that just because there's a theory that possibly the black coffee helps you to kickstart the process of cellular repair and damaged cell repair. The theory is that it brings it down from that 18 to 22 hour state down to like 16 hours or something like that there. So what people were wanting to do was fast for a given period of time, so 20 to 24 hours, for the cellular repair and cellular regenerative, for the purpose of having that. And the idea then was that you would have black coffee in order to kickstart that process.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's cool. There's no studies on it, and it's not scientifically backed, apparently, according to the experts, like Peter Attia being one of them. I think that specific question was put to him, and he was like, well, it's theory. So
yeah. Okay.
It's got some good legs in the theory, but they haven't proven it or anything.
Right.
Yeah.
There's a lot to learn.
Yeah. So that's good. That's like an hour and a bit.
So Sunday night, you're gonna do like a group next Sunday as well?
Yeah. What do you think? Sunday or Monday? Do you think it's best to keep this on a set day and time, and then everything goes around that, or you think it should float by a day?
Well, my schedule's pretty open.
Yeah.
Yeah, Monday's fine.
Okay. Yeah, I think for now, maybe having the ability to float by a day or so, Sunday or Monday, would be more beneficial than sticking to a set schedule. And then if it gets some legs and gets more established, then we could stick it to one specific day.
Cool.
Okay.
That's cool. Yeah. It's nice on Mondays, like typically being the day that I fast too. It's nice to know there's a group of us doing it. Yeah.
So
cool.
How about this then, going forward? So let's make this for next Monday, and we could make this beta test. So the three of us, and I'll talk about getting someone else maybe on for theirs, and we could just, if you're interested again, then John, we could do it Monday night when you're at the end of your fast as well. It'd be a good, Actually, I kind of like the idea of doing this in that none of us are fasted right now.
Yes.
So why don't we redo
No.
this again? Why don't we redo this again then next Monday, either in a fasted state or having just finished a fast. Does that sound good?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's perfect.
be a good
And like we'll
apples
focus
to
on
apples comparison.
Yeah, like just talk about what we've eaten and how we're feeling.
Yep.
Cool.
I like it.
Sweet.
That's good.
Oof, now I got to make it till
And
Monday
you
night.
have somebody
From Saturday.
And you have somebody else?
Yeah.
So Saturday.
So
you
yeah,
have
actually,
somebody
sorry.
else you
Yeah, I
can
forgot
join.
to mention that. So maybe what I'll do is, so the three of us, and I've got two other people that are very, they're like 9 out of 10 commitment to doing a 72-hour fast. So we could add them in the loop.
Okay.
Yeah, that sounds good.
And they're regular fasters? These
Yes.
people fast regularly?
Yep.
Yep.
They both done,
Okay.
the one guy I think has done 44, 42, and the other guy's has 48s.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay, that sounds good.
Yeah. Okay.
Whatever date that is.
So what time are you thinking?
I'm thinking this is a pretty good time. 7 or 8 o'clock, Monday, the 24th or 25th.
Okay.
What's
All
better,
right.
7 or 8? Or you want to go in the middle, 7:30?
I'm John, what
I'm
works
good.
for you?
I'm good with either. Actually, like, are we going to be eating? Like, are we going to be breaking our fast just before we get on? Or are we going to break our fast at the end of the podcast?
Oh, that's a good question. That's
Good
for you guys.
question.
'Cause I'll be going all the way through till Tuesday. So that'll be
That's
something
great.
you guys would have to
Because
decide.
I'm thinking I'll break my fast the Tuesday morning. So I won't be eating.
You're going to do another 36.
And yeah.
Okay.
So I'll start Sunday night. Yeah. And then go to Tuesday morning. If I feel good Tuesday morning, maybe I'll push it a little bit farther, but I'm not ready to do a 72-hour.
Yeah. What's
Yeah.
better for you, John? Would you eat, how late in the day do you usually let yourself eat? Like do you try to limit how late in the day you go before going to bed?
Yeah, but in that case, I'd be good to go and do a 36 again.
Oh, okay.
It wouldn't matter. Yeah.
Go from
Okay.
Sunday to Monday morning or Tuesday morning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, well, I'll be fasted. Okay, that'll be good.
Wow.
We'll be in a
Yeah,
fasted
I'm
state
interested
talking
because
about it.
because I noticed how fidgety you were last time, Mark, and you're not.
That's funny.
Yeah. It's a big difference.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, it'll be interesting. Well, yeah, because I noticed some symptoms that I was having during the fast, so I'll make note of it and see if they happen again.
Oh, good. Okay.
I'll bring it up that time.
Yeah, I like that.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. That sounds good.
Yeah.
That's good. Good plan, Mark.
Okay. With that, we'll shut her down. And I kind of like, since it's staying light out a bit longer, I kind of have to admit that I kind of like the later time, because I'm doing stuff sometimes outdoors up until 6:30 and stuff like that. So
yeah.
I kind of like the 8 p.m. timeline
That's
for
fine.
now. And it's
Sure.
still, there's even a little bit of light out right now. It's 9:30. Okay, so 8 p.m. Monday 25th in a fasted state. Woo.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. Well, so we'll all be at least 24 hours in.
Yep.
Ish.
Yes.
Yeah.
Great.
Hey.
Yeah, even more. 20, depending when you eat their last meal on Sunday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you started Saturday.
Yeah, I'll be starting Saturday.
Yeah.
Okay. Perfect.
Right.
Thanks a lot for your time, guys. I
Alrighty.
appreciate it.
Thank
That's
you.
some good insights.
Yeah, that
Looking
was
forward to
good.
next Monday. That'll be good.
Thanks,
That was
John.
fun.
Thank you, John. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
This was fun. Yeah. Thanks,
Yeah.
guys. Yeah. We'll see you in a week.
Yeah.
Yes. Take care, guys.
In a week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See you.
Bye-bye.